Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my October wrap-up, and October was an interesting reading month because I ended up DNFing 4 books this month, which I sometimes will go months without DNFing a book. So it's very rare for me to have 4 DNFs in 1 month. So we're going to talk about those, but I did have a couple of standout reads. So kind of a mixed bag here. Let's start with the 4 DNFs and then I'll go in order of my least favorite to my most favorite of the month. The first DNF I had for the month was Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. So this one, I would say if you like lyrical writing, slower paced magical realism, and a girl who mysteriously returns from death, then you might really like this book. The problem for me was the writing style. I can appreciate beautiful writing for sure, but this one just had a little bit too flowery of writing for my personal preference, and I didn't love the format of it where we followed like different side characters every chapter, so we never really connected to any of the characters, because as soon as you like one character, you switch to another character's point of view and you get their kind of backstory and how they fit into the book and all that. So I feel like if I'd continued on, I would have seen how all these different characters come together, but I just wasn't really feeling it. I really didn't care, so I did DNF it. I'm so sorry if you love this book. It's very pretty, and I do feel like it definitely has an audience. Like, this book, I can see why people would love it if it works for them, so. The second DNF for the month was The Troop by Nick Cutter. Y'all who recommended this book are so much braver than me. Like, you have stronger stomachs, I'll say that, because I wasn't necessarily scared by this book. This is a body horror that follows Boy Scouts in this campsite and has a mysterious diseased man come into the picture. It was so disgusting. I couldn't even get 100 pages into it. I am not scared by body horror. I'm just so grossed out by it. And this was like so nasty. I don't like weird things happening to people's bodies. I just don't like it. I was like not enjoying reading this at all. Nasty. Y'all love this. I am so impressed with what you can handle, because I could not handle this. So nasty. But again, like, it wasn't anything to do with the writing, the story, or the characters. Like, all of that I was really into. I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take the body horror. It's so nasty. So yeah, this is not for me. Anything that is described as having heavy body horror, I realize that is not my cup of tea. My third DNF was Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames, which is the sequel to Kings of the Wild. And so I really enjoyed Kings of the Wild. Light-hearted adventure fantasy. And this one is inspired by rock songs from the 80s. But for me, what I really enjoyed about the first one was the characters. And I loved that we had a mission, and we were on that mission with these like eclectic group of characters who were past their prime, and they were after this daughter. And I really enjoyed that adventure journey story because I like the characters. This one, I was not connecting with the characters at the beginning. There was no kind of mission that we were on, and I'm sure it forms into that later on in the book, but I don't love this world enough to be in it with characters that I don't care about. So for me, I just realized, like, I like Kings of the Wild. I'm going to keep Kings of the Wild around, but I don't have any interest in continuing on with Bloody Rose because I just don't care enough about the characters and the world. So, bummer. And then my last DNF is A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. This was shocking to me because I really enjoyed A Memory Called Empire when I read it, and this is very dense sci-fi that is very political in nature, and this one in particular has a first contact with aliens type scenario. And The first one, like, I will say the reading experience, you have to be concentrated on the book. Like, you have to be in the right headspace, the right mood for it, because it's very confusing if you aren't paying attention. It's very dense writing. And I think that this is the only DNF this month that I can see myself eventually coming back to when I'm in more of the mood for it. I feel like I just was not in that mood, and the dense writing, it was losing me. It was losing me this time, and it didn't with A Memory Called Empire, and I think it's just because of my mood. So this is the only one that it's not a permanent DNF, so I will keep this one around, but it has nothing to do with the quality of the content of this book. It's just, I think I'm just not in the right mood for it. All right, now let's get to the books that I actually finished, and we'll start with my least favorite, work my way up to my most favorite. My least favorite book of the month was 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. This is my sixth Liane Moriarty book, fifth one, maybe. Whatever. I've read a lot of her books and I always enjoy them. This is my least favorite one. This is a slow burn, character focused mystery that has a wellness retreat setting and very flawed characters with mysterious pasts. So you have this group of eclectic people, none of which are extremely likable people. They were all very, very flawed in their own different ways, but you do find yourself kind of starting to get connected to some of them more than others. For me, this one just felt, first of all, I never classify this author's books as thrillers. I think if you do classify them as thrillers, that's fine, but I just personally don't find these very thrilling. I think that they have this mystery element to them that keeps you engaged throughout, but they're not thrilling edge of your seat books. They don't have these big twists, and the ending to this one in particular was very predictable for me. And the characters I just never really connected to. There's one family unit in this book that I did enjoy the most, and I probably would have liked this book if it had just been about them, but because it's kind of trying to shed light on every different character's story and journey, just wasn't a huge fan. So this is my least favorite Liane Moriarty so far, and I'm very surprised because I always have so much fun with her books. The next book, these are all 4 stars and above, so I really enjoyed all of these books. So really, like, the quality of what I read this month was great, besides the 4 DNFs. The next book I have is All the Missing Girls by Miranda. This one is a small town setting that has a backwards narrative structure and has a character with a very mysterious past. This one for me, I was so confused at first, and the author, I've never read a book like this, but the author definitely took a chance. And if you've ever seen the movie Memento, where it's told backwards, like it starts with the ending and then works your way up to what should be the beginning of the movie, then you might really like what the author did with this story. She starts you in present day and introduces you to what's going on, the characters, but then she brings you to the very end of the story and works backwards from there. And at first you're like, what in the world? Why is she doing this? But you have to trust her because there's a reason. And I really, really enjoyed the reveals at the end and how it all came together. The execution definitely, I can see it not working for some people, but it really worked well for me. I really enjoyed it. Even despite being confused at the beginning, I just really appreciated that payoff at the end. I really liked the atmosphere of this one, the small town setting, the characters and the mysterious past. It just kept me intrigued throughout, and I really appreciated the ending. So I would highly recommend this one, and I'm definitely excited to check out more of Miranda's books. The next book I have to talk about is a self-published book that was so kindly sent to me by the author, and that is 9 of Swords by Quintana. So this is a high fantasy book that follows a royal family, and especially these kids born into royalty, and it all takes place around this jungle military school setting. So it's really cool. The setting was really, really cool in this book. This was a chunker of a book. My goodness, this is a very long book, but I really was engaged throughout. I thought that the author did an amazing job with the characters in this book. I love our main character of Phineas Fogg. He is such a little cinnamon roll of a character. I loved him. I loved his relationships with all of the other characters. And he has kind of this tragic backstory, and how it's weaved into his struggles and journey is so sweet. Like, it just was so heartwarming. This is such a cozy feel of a book. Like, I definitely would recommend this to anyone who loves magical schools and just loves curling up next to a fire and reading just like a cozy fantasy adventure story. It just had such fun characters to follow. I loved the friend group, the found family feel, and the setting was very unique, unlike anything else I'd really read before. I think it definitely could have been shorter. Like, there were definitely parts where it dragged or got repetitive, and I think that there were certain situations that the characters got out of, these very life or death situations, that were a little too convenient at times, and it kind of kept happening where they would get out of these situations in really convenient ways. These were really my only problems with the book, but besides that, this was really good. So I would highly recommend this one to any age. I'm not sure which kind of age category this is supposed to be categorized in, whether it's adult or young adult. I can see it appealing to anyone, really. I can see it fitting anywhere. And that's what I think is part of like the coziness and the appeal, is even though you're following these children characters, they're placed in very mature situations, and it's just really, it's very heartwarming and sweet. So I really enjoyed this one and will be highly recommending it in the future on my channel. The next book I read was The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. So this one has so many mixed reviews, and I really enjoyed it. This one is an apocalyptic horror with an open ending in a secluded cabin in the woods with strangers you don't know if you can trust. And it was just a wild ride. Like, I don't know what it was about this book that just had me on the edge of my seat the entire book. I was just so confused. Like, I was confused in the best way possible, because it was like a fun confused where it's like, what is real? And I really enjoyed it. I can totally see why this gets so many mixed reviews and why so many people can't stand this book. I totally get it. So it's so hard for me to just blanket recommend. You have to be okay with open endings. You just have to be. This one is one of the most open-ended endings I've ever read. But I finished it and just started like laughing, because I was like, what did I just read? What a wild ride. So I really enjoyed it, and I don't know if I recommend it. I really don't, because I know so many people who love it and so many people who like hate it. And I feel like you really can't be in the middle. Like, maybe there are some people in the middle, but like most people will like take sides. And I'm gonna be in the loved it camp. I really am. So if you just like want to know what the heck all of the talk is about, check it out. But just be aware, you have to be okay with the open ending. That's all. The next book I read was The Thunder Heist by Jed Hearn. So this is also a self-published book that was so kindly sent to me by the author. So thank you so much, Jed, for sending me this. I really enjoyed this one. This is a fantasy heist story with some of the most unique world building. It's entirely set on an island of ships and has a main character who is so intelligent and clever and is like one step ahead of everybody else. And I love characters like that. I loved the main character in this book. The only complaint I have is it's too short. I wanted more. I wanted more of this world and these characters and this story. And I know that there are going to be sequels coming out, so I'm very excited. But as it stands right now, I really, really enjoyed what I got from this, but I just wanted more, which is good. I loved the unique setting. I love a good heist story. If you like a heist story, you gotta check this one out. What I felt was missing just a little bit too much in the story was the development with the crew. I wanted to see more of their interactions with each other because those were some of the favorite moments, and the way this ended was awesome. But I that's where I felt like I needed a little bit more development in this single book, was just with the crew. But besides that, this was so fun, and it's such a quick read. This one is one I couldn't put down. I would highly recommend it to anyone looking for a unique fantasy setting with just a kick-ass main character who is like always one step ahead of the rest. I love that kind of stuff, so highly recommend. The next book I have, making almost to the end, is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a heartbreaking father and son story in a post-apocalyptic world with a very unique writing style. It was such a quick read, but it packed such a punch in the amount of pages it had, and it was so unlike any other reading experience I've had. If you don't know anything about Cormac McCarthy's writing, he doesn't write with any quotation marks, didn't name his characters in this book, so everything is the man or the boy, and he doesn't use a lot of dialogue tags, so it's a very unique writing style that I could see it not working for some people, but I loved it, and it really got to the heart of the story quicker because it really just zeroed in on those character interactions, that emotional journey that the characters were taking. It was very heartbreaking. It's very sad. It was a hard read, but it was so beautiful. I loved it. I loved this father and this son. Oh, I loved them so much. So I cried, and any book that can make me cry, I'm automatically gonna like raise the rating, like, because obviously I connected like so much to like these characters, and I just wanted the best for them. And it's a hard read, but it's really amazing. I would highly recommend this one. If you're intimidated at all, I would definitely try it out because I was able to easily follow the story despite kind of the unique writing style. Just beautiful. Just a beautiful, beautiful story exploring the lengths a father will go for their child. And it was just wonderful. And the last book, and my absolute favorite of the month, was Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This book, if there is one book that I recommend on my channel or I talk about on my channel, I hope each of you will pick up and read, it is Just Mercy. Like, this is the one book that out of all of the rest of them that I talk about, this is the one I want everybody to pick up. This is a nonfiction. It is written by a death row lawyer and particularly follows the story of this black man who was convicted of this crime and put on death row, and he's very clearly innocent. So there's a lot more to it than just that, but that's the main story that we're following throughout the entire book. But through that story, the author also inserts other stories that he's personally had experience with throughout, and it's just one of the most powerful, eye-opening books I've ever read. I can't recommend it enough. Like, please, if you take any of my recommendations, this is the one. So Just Mercy is definitely my favorite. The author ends the story with such a beautiful, beautiful message. I loved it from beginning to end. He did an amazing job. So please go read this book, please. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of October. Did you see any that you've read before that you have any thoughts on? Definitely leave those comments down below. What was your favorite book that you read in the month of October? I would love to know. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!